Has Final Fantasy XIV killed World of Warcraft? By Josh Strife Hayes.
Has Final Fantasy XIV killed World of Warcraft?
Audio.
Has the Western King of MMOs been dethroned by the Eastern Prince? Has the clickbait title got this video more views than normal? Let's find out.
Probably not.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Strife Hayes. Over the last few years, the MMORPG landscape has been dominated by 5 major MMO games.
Yeah.
World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, Guild Wars 2, The Elder Scrolls Online, and RuneScape. And of these 5, World of Warcraft has stood head and shoulders above all the others in terms of players. It's been an absolute dominant force in the MMORPG landscape. And because of this, every time a new MMORPG is announced or released, people always ask, is this the WoW killer? Will this dethrone the king? But it turns out World of Warcraft's biggest enemy wasn't another game. It was World of Warcraft itself.
Actually, I have insight on this that a lot of other people don't. Do y'all remember, was it Slime Tiger? It was a tie-in with the World of Warcraft TCG. So back in olden Kip days, I actually played a few card games. One, the Naruto CCG, played Yu-Gi-Oh! In the past. I also played a little game that a lot of people don't remember exists anymore called Legend of the Five Rings from AEG, Alderac Entertainment Group. L5R was my jam. And about this time, about when I was playing Naruto and L5R, there was the WoW TCG. Many people will remember before Hearthstone, there was the WoW TCG, and you could actually redeem some of these cards, like the Slime Tiger, for the mount in-game. So, and I have it on good authority from some people that I know, one of them being my on my mod team, who used to play WoW pretty religiously. And, you know, they played it in the good years. They played TBC, they played Lich King, and then they played through Cataclysm, and then up through Current, right? And every time they just keep going back to WoW, and they always state that the game itself just isn't what it used to be, and there is a sunk cost fallacy in it. So one of the initial missteps, I would argue, is WoW killing off their own TCG, because in much the same way that, you know, Bandai America, right, Bandai US, just kind of said, yeah, we're closing up shop for the Naruto CCG back in about 2013, shortly followed by L5R dying and then getting the LCG reboot from Fantasy Flight, but even then that tanked because of the virus, right? WoW kind of got killed in a similar fashion. So already, I mean, the missteps were clear even as early as 2012, 2013, whenever the WoW TCG ended up dying. And I know Cataclysm was a very interesting expansion received by players in regards to some of the world state changes that it did make. As somebody that plays games like RuneScape, played RuneScape religiously for years at this point, almost decades, Lord of the Rings Online, someone who has actually gotten into Final Fantasy XIV and gone through Endwalker 6.1 as of this video. I mean, I have weird things to add to this.
All the other MMOs had to actually do was sit around and survive long enough and wait as World of Warcraft messed up its own game and butchered its own player base, and then be there to comfort all of the World of Warcraft refugees that would eventually flock to them.
Well, so remember as well, WoW killed MMOs like EverQuest. EverQuest 1 was different than 2, right? WoW was a direct kind of competition and caused a lot of changes for games like EverQuest. Caused a lot of changes for games like, I just had it on the tip of my tongue, Star Wars Galaxies, right? Didn't Star Wars Galaxies start going down the bad road, quote unquote, right? Start changing into eventually the inevitable death of the game because of WoW-isms? You have to understand, WoW was we used to have the Prince of Darkness Ozzy Osbourne commercials. We used to have Mr. T with his Night Elf Mohawk memes. Bring those back, World of Warcraft. You want some easy W's? Come on, just make commercials like that. Hire some celebrities. Like, it is such an omnipresent force. And back in my day, early 2000s, right, there were the kids that had money that could play World of Warcraft, and there were the kids that were poor, like me. Well, I mean, we're fairly well off, but right, didn't have technology, gaming, PC stuff, and the poor kids played RuneScape, so there was that division.
That all the other MMOs had to do was wait until people got sick of WoW and then welcome the refugee players. And it turns out that the game to do that might be Final Fantasy XIV. Let's discuss why.
I have reservations on this.
Consider dropping a like on the video or subbing to the channel for more MMO stuff. Ring the bell so you get all the future videos. And a big shout out to the Patreon supporters. It is getting close to another font size reduction. More on this at the end. For now, let's begin. Let's start by discussing the idea that World of Warcraft can be killed, and if that were possible, how would it happen? Because it's a rather strange phenomenon. Right now, there are multiple MMOs all surviving. The big 5 and many smaller ones. And even if an MMO isn't number 1, it can still have a player base showcase and make money. So it's not...
I mean, honestly, here's the thing, right? You can still play Lord of the Rings Online to this day. I remember being on Lord of the Rings Online when Sir Christopher Lee passed away. It has its dedicated community. There are people that did the entire chicken run from Bree to Mordor, literally walking into Mordor as a chicken, right? With an on-guard around them. You have games like Meridian 59 that are still going to have their own dedicated player bases. You're going to have, I'm sure Tales of Toast has its own dedicated player base of, one or two people that it is, right? Phantasy Star Online. You have so many MMOs that if that's your thing, that's your thing. And there's absolutely communities that still frequent and play these games. It doesn't have to be one of these big fives. And I think these big five are really your average players, your players that are looking for a good experience, a good stable experience. These are the MMOs that they're going to flock through.
The case of there can be only one. MMORPG games aren't Highlanders. However, MMOs are games that people invest years of their life into.
Yes.
They're often so big they take hundreds or thousands of hours to fully explore, and so people want to pick the right one.
Exactly.
This means not just finding a game they enjoy or a game their friends play. It also means, and this is extremely important to a lot of players, finding a game that will definitely survive.
So here's the thing, right? How many thousands of hours have I sunk into RuneScape over the years? When I started streaming RuneScape during early old model Kip era, I mean, I blitzed. I haven't done everything in RuneScape by a country mile, right? I still haven't done Castle Wars and gotten any of the rewards from that. I still haven't done Soul Wars. I still haven't done a lot of those, mini game, side game kind of things. Yes, I've done Fight Kiln. Yes, I've done Fight Cave. Yes, I've done Call Zuck, right? I haven't done Zuck solo, right? That's how you get your Zuck hard mode. So, Zuck hard mode specifically is how you get your best in slot cape. There's bosses I haven't fought. I haven't fought Yakumaru. Right? I haven't fought any of the. I still don't have access to Menethos. Still don't have access to Berg de Rot. I ended up blitzing a lot of the mandatory quests to get my way into Soul Split. Soul Split, obviously, getting me away from God Wars Dungeon 2 into God Wars Dungeon 3. Right? I blitzed RuneScape very hard, and I am in no way, shape, or form after hundreds and thousands of hours of playing RuneScape over the past 2 decades approximately. I am nowhere near done finished with it. But what separates a game like that separates a game like World of Warcraft, right, where people have played for the past 15 plus years on World of Warcraft, games like Meridian 59. What separates games like that from, say, I don't know, if I made an MMO tomorrow, right? It's that it has that security behind it. Yes, an MMO is going to be a time investment. Final Fantasy XIV, for all intents and purposes, is a time investment. It is a game that, especially in ARR, you have to read. You need to be engaging with this. It is a game that, in my opinion, respects your time, but you have to give your time to that game. And that's the thing. When every single game is clamoring for your time, when do you say we need to stop this, right? That's why I don't play RuneScape. That's why I don't play the Big Five, right? That's why I don't play RuneScape on top of Final Fantasy XIV, on top of WoW, right? Because that is just a lot of time. And that, then that gets into cutting it down streaming time, video time. That gets to cutting down time that I can actually, go and eat and sleep, right? Which, as somebody who is a workaholic, has definitely cut, has definitely cut sleep to actually work, right? It's all about balance. And I think a lot of these big MMOs have features that either keep players engaged, have enough of a sunk cost fallacy into them, or are enjoyable enough to most everybody that they are able to stand above the competition. It's going to be a time investment. Picking an MMO, if you don't like 14, that's fine. If you don't like something like Mabinogi, that's fine. If you don't like World of Warcraft, that is fine. You are valid in your decision, and you're allowed to have that decision. It is a large time investment.
No one wants to play a dying or dead MMO, because then your years of investment in your character might be taken away if the game does shut down. This puts MMOs into a really dangerous position. If people think your game is dying, people won't play it.
They will manifest it.
If people don't play, the game dies. It's a cycle, a horrible death spiral that's hard as hell to recover from, if possible at all. If you run an MMO, the last thing you want is the public to think your game is dying, because that could cascade very quickly into a massive player exodus.
And that's what we're seeing with Helldivers right now, are we not? With at time of this video, right? PSN being required, being mandatory for all Helldivers players, all new, and then all current and past Helldivers players, right? And you're already seeing players, game's dead, and you're seeing that mass exodus. This is in modern events. This isn't just a speculatory thing. This is showcasing with modern events that if a game is perceived as dying, players will leave the game, and because players are leaving the game, it can have a cascade and ripple effect into the game actually dying. So, he is absolutely right on this.
So multiple MMORPGs can coexist together. In fact, some will consider this essential for the genre to continue because competition breeds excellence.
Yes,
World of Warcraft is in no danger from other games simply existing. But if people think your game is dying, this can potentially start an almost unstoppable cycle.
Yes.
New players will Google your game and see people saying it's dying and so not join the game. And because new people aren't joining the game, your game ends up dying. It becomes this absolute domino effect of as soon as the public think it's not worth getting invested in, the public don't invest in it. And then the current player base realise there's no new blood coming into the game, the game begins to stagnate and slowly die off. And
I will actually, from experience. So I actually never understood the WoW sunk cost fallacy until I had started playing Destiny. With how Lightfall has gone for Destiny, someone who played during Season of Arrivals, someone who came back, Season of Seraph, just the tail end last few weeks of Witch Queen, going into Lightfall. And I always end up coming back to Destiny, but it's because I just have so much time sunk into it. I have things like Outbreak Perfected, which I ran to get the Catalyst legitimately back when Zero Hour was still a thing. Heroic Zero Hour with the stupid Vault Siva thing, right? And that's something that I have tied to my account. That's something I can say that I did. I didn't just get it as a world drop, right? And there's so much time and effort. It is sunk cost fallacy for a lot of me playing Destiny. I also enjoy the raid mechanics. I also enjoy a lot of things that it does, but I never understood the WoW cycle until I started playing Destiny, because it does come down to you've just played a lot of this, and it's rather unfortunate. And I do think that the time that this happened, because Shadowbringers was excellent. Like going through, I didn't get into Shadowbringers until about 84, until we left a certain zone, right? And then it started to pick up. But you have to understand how 14 kind of writes their stories. They kind of start out with it's the very classic flow of a story chart, right? Where you have your inciting incident, your introduction, your rising action, your climax, then your falling action, and then your resolution, right? It follows that. Sometimes it has multiple throughout the expansions, right? So you have one graph, and there's another graph to the top right of it, another graph to the top right of it, and then it'll actually have its full resolution. But 14 is very not cookie cutter. It's very predictable in how it writes stories, but it's very effective as well. So going into Shadowbring, which already had a lot of tension tie into Endwalker when this Exodus is happening, Endwalker, the final boss of 6.0, is one of my favorite bosses in MMOs that I've played so far, and I liked Extinction in RuneScape 3. I think that there was a lot that Extinction brought to the table. I liked what happened to the Elder Gods. I like that Zaros is just kind of out there now. I like that we got to see the resolution from Karapak and his son, right? There was a lot that Extinction brought to the table, as well as having, bosses like Zuckin that come out. And WoW is just, it's such an interesting enigma, because I want it to be better for those people that play WoW. I want people to be able to have fun with it. I want people to be able to engage with it. And there's absolutely people going, you can still have fun with it. You can still play with that, right? And absolutely, you can. I'm not saying you can't. The issue is a lot of people, it doesn't feel like it respects their time. And in a lot of cases, people think games like 14 or ESO or even RuneScape can and will respect their time better. You need to look at an MMO as you need to sell me a product. Yes, I have sunk cost fallacy. Yes, I'm looking at this, and it's one of those things that it's like, okay, yes, this makes sense, but still sell me that product, right? Give me the Endwalker trailer. Do you think Endwalker would have nearly had as much success as it did if its trailer, its marketing trailer, was absolutely botched? I have gone over a number of times how Destiny 2 Final Shapes trailers, and there's reaction up to this on this channel right now, it didn't sell me the product. Who is this for? New players, existing players? As an existing player, this did nothing. And at that point, you have failed your purpose as marketing material. I know we've kind of tangented a little bit here. This is a topic that I have talked a lot about and have a lot of context for, so thank you for bearing with me.
MMORPGs need to hit a critical mass of players on release to be enjoyable for the first few weeks, and then maintain this critical mass of players every expansion, every year, as they go on to remain enjoyable for both the people who are playing them now and the new people they want to come and join them. And while World of Warcraft may still be one of the strongest, most played games of all time, dropping from the number 1 spot to the number 2 spot,
it's big.
That's a pretty big signal.
Investors see that.
That's a pretty big indicator that the king is not untouchable. That World of Warcraft, that has enjoyed genre dominance for so long, might be floundering. And while it's not an unplayed game, while it's not a dead or a dying game,
no, it will see
dropping
players
from 1 to 2,
that's big.
that could start the first domino falling. So surely to beat World of Warcraft, all you need to do is release an objectively better game. Well, no, not really, because you're not just trying to get people to play a game. You're trying to remove people from an established culture and move them over to yours. I've already discussed why you can't kill World of Warcraft on my other videos. An MMO game isn't just a video game. It's a community, millions strong. It's a subculture, a friendship group, a clan, a guild, a personal connection to your character and the adventures they've been on. When you invest...
Someone in chat did bring up that this did come out kind of before Facebook, social media, that kind of thing was super widespread, and you're absolutely right. Josh Strife Hayes hits the head on the nail. You play an MMO not to necessarily play solo. That's actually a lot of my issues with RuneScape that I run into. If I want the best monetary return on what I'm doing, I'm looking at getting good, and I'm soloing hard mode Carapac, and I'm trying to go for those big drops. I'm trying to get Fractured Staff of Armadyl. I'm trying to go get Zuxord, right? I'm trying to get Bow of the Last Guardian from Zamorak, right? I don't like that solo experience. So things like 14 and even World of Warcraft, if I had enough people playing it, do appeal to me because, hey, it's like... Let's go into Endwalker's... How do I word that? I'm trying to be very non-spoilery here for those that haven't played 14. My Axe's Warrior, those who know what that is, that trial. Hey, let's go run this EX today, or let's go run Seed of Sacrifice EX, right? And you're like, oh, okay, cool. And you have your mechanics and stuff. I already come from Destiny, where these mechanics are just second nature to me. Right? I learned on Garden of Salvation, not Vault of Glass, not King's Fall, not on Deepstone Crypt. I learned on Garden of Salvation for my first raid, and that was my experience into raiding. And so moving over to 14, I can see that people are like, yeah, let's go do the level 83 trial wink wink EX, right? Yeah, okay. Let's do the fall EX, right? Okay, yeah, and you know what you're talking about. Or let's go P12S, right? And you have this community that can work together to achieve that end, not dissimilar to me teaching people how Root of Nightmares works, telling them how Planet works, and pushing them on Nezarec because people are kind of in odd positions and stuff like that. And it's not because I'm getting angry, it's because I'm pushing them. Like, look, you need to stick to your lane. Where is my ad clear? Where is this, right? And it's this presentation. 14 leans into that presentation as well, where you have things like the one I mentioned for Maximum, Dying Grasp EX, right? Or sorry, Dying Gasp EX, or Seed of Sacrifice. And it makes it this whole presentation throughout the fight. And it adds to that theatrical experience with communities. And even then, I can go to other VTubers, I can go to other streamers, I can, have people in chat interact with me in game. And that's the thing. You have them interact with you. You have a community thing that you can do. And that's what also sets MMOs apart. If I wanted to go play a single player game, right, I'd go crack open my Majora's Mask 64 copy. I'd crack open Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. If I wanted to go play more of an RPG kind of thing, I'd go play Dragon Quest. I'd go play Dragon Age. I'd go play Mass Effect, right? But because you play on an MMO, you get to play with other people. You get to see maybe that tank struggling on a Hullbreaker Isle, and if they ask for help, hey, yeah, no, I would recommend this, right? Or you get to pick up tank, and you get to go into the Endwalker Alliance raid series blind as a paladin, right? Which I did. I thought it was a great raid series. Huge spoilers, I'm not going to discuss any of that. But he nails it on the head. This is all to come back to say, in an MMO, you have to understand your community. You have to understand that there are people here that are going to interact with each other. This is going to be the thing that they do together.
Years of your life into anything, you form an emotional connection with that thing, and breaking that connection can be extremely difficult. It's the same as anything. A favourite TV show, a favourite band, a favourite person. Even if something objectively better comes along, you might not like that thing more. Even if they change over the years for the worse, the emotional connection will stay. Very few people can completely emotionally disconnect and drop years of bonding for something else. If a new MMORPG released today that was superior to every single MMO on the market in every conceivable way, it still wouldn't get all of the players, because people would stick to what they know and what they've come to love. We are emotional creatures. We get attached to things, even if we shouldn't. So a new game has to be not only great in terms of mechanics and graphics and player involvement, it needs to be so unimaginably great it actually destroys years of emotional build-up and commitment to other games and brings an established community over to it, which is just extremely unlikely to happen. There's similarities between playing an MMO you hate just because you've played it for so long and staying in a job you hate, or being friends or in a relationship with a person you hate just because it's familiar and you've got history.
Exactly. Me and Destiny. Kip, why do you still play Destiny? I mean, realistically, yeah, I don't like a lot of the balancing decisions, and I don't like a lot of the things that they do, but you know what? I get to go run Vault of Glass. I get to teach people Vault of Glass. I get to teach people King's Fall. I get to teach people, not really Crota's End. That's a little bit of a rough one to teach, especially when you say know what to do. People die to lanterns repeatedly. I get to teach Root of Nightmares. I get to teach people how to do some of these things, and I get to push myself and learn better, right? Not everyone can say that they can do planets, macrocosm, right? On planets, duo, right? Me and one other person doing all 4 plates, right? It's awesome to push yourself to do that. And I like that. It's fine to like the gameplay loop. It's fine to like that history. It's fine to have that history. And it does keep people. That means if, say, we get, I don't know, RoboStar, right? Just random name, right? And it's like Destiny and Warframe combined in one and conceivably superior in every single way. Do you think someone from Warframe that has 20,000 hours in Warframe is going to move over and abandon all their Warframe chassis in their grind, right? Probably not. Do you think that people who have, top 2% of Destiny players, right, and saying the game needs to be harder, do you think that they're going to leave Destiny to go to this objectively superior game, or they're going to stay on this, right? And this goes with World of Warcraft as well, right? Where you can have a game that is objectively superior to what World of Warcraft is doing. Say the rep grind is awful. Say that you don't like the expansion. Say that you're getting mass reported for the class you play. Wasn't that an actual thing in Dragonflight where we get this video obviously predating Dragonflight, but there was a influx of players that were reporting the new class because it wasn't quote unquote doing damage despite it like doubling everyone else's damage. There's things like that. And even if it's an objectively better experience, hey, you still have your Slime Tiger, or hey, you still have your Corrupted Ashbringer, not the new one you can get, right? But like the old Corrupted Ashbringer, right? And you have these histories and these things, and it's super cool. Like me on Destiny, I have the original Whisper of the Worm quest, right? I have that ship. You can't get that ship anymore. Technically, you can get the Vex version of it from the reprise, right? But, there's stuff on my account, the stupid Spire of Stars emote, that you can't get anymore. And this is part of why your attachment makes it so hard to move on to other games. I 100% agree with what he's saying here.
Comfortable in an awful way. It's a habit. In some cases, it becomes an addiction. So killing World of Warcraft isn't just a case of making a better game.
Exactly.
It's a case of overcoming years of entrenched emotional bonds and personal connections. It's trying to get people to quit an addiction, because to many people that's exactly what World of Warcraft is. And this doesn't actually happen very often. Even in cases when people do leave their favourite MMORPG and go and play a new MMO that's just released, they often return to their old favourite within a few days, weeks, or sometimes months. Because the game they know, the game they're good at, is comfortable. And people like being comfortable.
It's what you know.
When you spend years building up an understanding or a connection, you feel safe and secure in any position, be that a job, a relationship, or an MMO. And these year-long comforts can feel nice. Unfortunately, when people try a new MMO, they often expect to feel the same level of comfort and security within only a few days or a few weeks that previously took them years to build up in their other game.
Exactly.
People often want the feeling of complete familiarity while also being something completely new. They want to feel they've been there for years while also being amazed with a new experience. They want novelty and familiarity combined. Imagine leaving a several-year-long relationship with someone you've grown to understand extremely well. When you start dating somebody else, you won't have that same deep level of understanding. You will need to work on it, and sometimes people don't want to work on it. They miss the old level of familiarity. They miss all the effort they've previously put in and don't want to put it in again, so they just go back to what they knew, even if it's not good for them or what they actually want.
Exactly. 100%. As somebody that comes from RuneScape, someone comes from Lord of the Rings Online, it was a monumental task to get me past A Realm Reborn. It really was. And I'm not going to say that it wasn't. My mod team pushed me. Kip, just play the game. Like, you just get past A Realm Reborn. I promise it gets better. And we've already had a video discussion on technically why that is the case and isn't the case, right? But me being able to go in and Paladin blind tank the Endwalker Alliance raid, right? I didn't go in and just do that overnight. I had to put in work. I had to learn tanking. I had to ask people, hey, how do you play Paladin effectively? How do you do XYZ, ABC? And there's still things about the game that I don't understand. I still haven't done Baja, and I'm already on 6.2, right? Like, you can't go into a game and expect that same level of familiarity. I am guilty of this myself. I am guilty of, say, going into, Resident Evil, the new Resident Evil game, right? And not feeling like it's not Village, or going into Resident Evil 7 and feeling like it's not 5 or 6, right? And we all do it. It's like going into whatever the next Call of Duty was, the boots on the ground, was it World War II? After Black Ops 3, right? How it's just different. it's such a different experience, but there is kind of that same vein in Call of Duty, like, oh, it's a Call of Duty game. Your movement's just changing a little bit, right? This is absolutely a valid point to bring up. And so how do you get people to leave the game? Your studio, Activision Blizzard in this case with World of Warcraft, continues to make bad decisions. For me in Destiny, it's Bungie continuing to have made bad decisions in Lightfall that quite literally broke an addiction. I was playing like 10 plus hours a day at the end of season of the Seraph. And then Lightfall came out and there was just train wreck after train wreck after train wreck. And eventually I'm just like, I don't want to play this anymore. The really big balancing factor of why I'm not running, say, Pantheon right now is because everyone I did have in kind of like this raid vet role has kind of moved on. And that's completely fair to them. If the game is not respecting their time, rats, you no longer have a static anymore because people want to go where their time is appreciated. For World of Warcraft, literally from my mod, right, who goes through this, and I've asked him, like, what is the World of Warcraft cycle? Well, you get the new expansion, you get to max, you get your max PvP, grats, see you next expansion, right? And I think a lot of people could back up that statement. They could back up that view where World of Warcraft is, all right, is the game good yet? You play through, you hit max level, you get your max gear in both sets, right? Cool, I guess we'll try again next expansion. The game isn't good, right? And that's how you kill your game. It's Pavlov, right? If you start ringing a bell for a dog, right? The dog and the bell signals food. What happens when you start ringing the bell and the dog doesn't see food, right? Well, the dog is starting to conflating with, well, this bell is just bogus. I might come every now and again, but realistically, I'm going to stop coming to that dog bowl, right? It is just that basic. If you put out a garbage product repeat, and that's the thing, you're going to have botch releases, right? 14 has had stuff that it's had to address, has it not? RuneScape have had to have things that they've had to address, have they not? Destiny 2 has had taken L's that they've had to address, have they not? Same with World of Warcraft. You can have an L, and I think it's actually Josh Strife Hayes himself who explains, and I think this was in reference to, oh, what was it? It was the it's the Excel spreadsheet simulator, Diablo 2, like that everyone plays. I don't remember what it's called. I literally don't remember the game. But how your goodwill is kind of a currency with your community. If you have a botched release, if you have a botched launch, if you have a massive game-breaking bug, you can use that goodwill as kind of this expendable currency with your community. But once that's run dry, that's when you start running into issues. So a lot of WoW players, it doesn't surprise me that just want to play game and want to feel like they're tanking, want to feel like they're healing these massive pulls, right? My mod, who is a healer by nature, has fun in late game Final Fantasy, loves running Tower of Babel and feeling that push to heal the team, right? Where I like things like Tower of Babel because I want to push, I want to tank, I want to do that full pull, and I want to have those 2 to 3 mitigations on constantly to weave in between them to do that. How you kill your game, how you kill your product, how you kill what you're doing is by not taking care of it and just assuming people are going to buy it. Which, to be fair, in World of Warcraft case, Call of Duty's case, and people are going to buy it anyway, so technically they don't have to try because people will always keep coming back. They have hit that critical mass of recurring players that they realistically do not need to care.
So if World of Warcraft is more than just a game, surely making another game isn't going to kill it. And that's absolutely right. World of Warcraft is a community, a personality. It is a hobby, a habit, in some cases an addiction. It is a personal love, a history, a memory. It's part of who you are. And a new game existing or being made isn't going to delete all of that. No other game is going to be responsible for destroying Warcraft's community. No other game is going to be responsible for tainting your memories of it. No other game is going to make World of Warcraft worse. Only World of Warcraft can do that to itself.
Yep.
And that is what we are seeing starting to happen.
So someone brings up a good point that a good MMO reporter took in a lot of some WoW player numbers, and if Classic wasn't a thing, they'd still be in a very bad position. I think that this is important to understanding the current situation of WoW. If you took out Classic, or if Classic goes downhill, is retail going to be in a good spot? And I think that's something important to keep an eye on.
If you have a toxic friend or you're in a bad relationship, no matter how many better people you meet or how many people tell you it's a bad relationship, it often isn't someone else who changes your mind about that toxic person. It's the person themselves finally doing something you can't take, or finally annoying you for so long you just run out of patience. If you have a job you hate, you don't often leave because another slightly better job is hiring. You leave because your current job does something bad enough to push you away. The comfort at your current terrible job needs to be overcome to such an extreme degree, you finally leave. Humans.
So let's put it this way, right? That is a very good thing to state. If you're at a job and it, say, pays you $20 an hour, but you're treated like garbage, everyone else around you gets to get away with literally doing anything, right? And you could go for another position that, say, I don't know, pays you maybe $22 an hour at another position, but, well, I already make $20 an hour here, and I do get my benefits, and I just kind of have to sit here, and yeah, I kind of hate the job, but I mean, it works, right? It's usually an event such as you getting written up for something stupid. It's usually an event like someone says something about you and it gets taken, just blown way out of proportion. Suddenly people are making just blatant accusations about you without any proof, and it gets up to, HR management, etc. You have people that will, say, get away with, just giving out information without verification. And if you did that, you're like, but I'd be fired if I did that kind of thing, right? And it's something that happens like that is ultimately the deal breaker. He is correct. It is something that is just big enough. It is something that is just eventful enough that it breaks. It absolutely just changes what you're doing. The game has now changed at this point. We are going on, not on a straight track anymore. Now it's shifted slightly to the left and is now on a different angle, right? He is absolutely right in this.
Stick around in situations long after we should have left because we have misplaced senses of loyalty, commitment, or toxic familiarity. And the catalyst that makes us finally move on often comes from the awful situation itself reaching new, unbearable levels of awfulness. World of Warcraft has franchise recognition. It has money. It has a long-term addicted player base. It has everything it needs to succeed, and it doesn't have to worry about other games killing it. It does have to worry, however, about it slowly killing itself. Yeah. The most successful update World of Warcraft has released in the last 5 years was World of Warcraft Classic. This means the best received update was the removal of 17 years of updates. The current staff of Activision Blizzard today, working on World of Warcraft right now, are not the original Blizzard staff of 2004. The team that made World of Warcraft originally are long gone. They've been replaced with cash shop mounts, account boosts, and lackluster expansion packs.
So actually, didn't Pirate Software have a video on that very specific subject? Where you have the entirety of StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty made less than the first sparkly horse mount for World of Warcraft. I want you to just put that into perspective. A loved series, and I hear people like StarCraft. I've never played StarCraft 2 personally, but I heard a lot of people like StarCraft 2, right? The entirety of a game with a 2-year development cycle, right? Undersold a horse. Peter the horse is here, right? Has undersold a shining horse mount. And you wonder why modern gaming is being pushed in the ways that it is. Like, I'm not saying you can't have your shiny horse. I'm not saying you can't have your wings in RuneScape. I'm not saying you can't buy your Cruise Chaser mount on the Final Fantasy XIV Mog Station, right? You should be allowed to do that as long as it's optional content. It's not pay to win, right? Like, say if I were to, I don't know, buy an item that just like gave me a 50% EXP boost, right? You can argue stuff like that is pay to win, and thus you get into the, well, what about the Dawn Trail pre-order earring, right? Technically pay to win, yeah. I mean, it's catching it as a catch-up bonus, so I mean that there's a discussion to be had there. That is important to understand. So yeah, you wonder why WoW doesn't necessarily focus on content like this, and you wonder why they have all these microtransactions. As somebody did point out in earlier in chat, that they've added a traders post in World of Warcraft where you can earn a special currency doing various things, and it rotates. And apparently one of them in this month, as of this video being recorded, you could get one of the WoW CCG mounts. I think that's a little unfair. I think that's a little disingenuous to the WoW CCG player base. And once again, hearing it was a good game, having understood, having my 2 card games I've loved killed at this point, right? Both Naruto CCG and L5R, Legend of the Five Rings, Scorpion can represent. Right? I understand the pain of that. And it feels disingenuous to have that locked behind that content, which, to be fair, that has its own third-party issues that has to deal with card games, third-party markets. Ugh. it's a bubble, and just throwing it out there. I think it's a little disingenuous. I think that's more salt and sand in the eyes of the WoW TCG community that still wanted to play it. But these are conversations that need to happen. These are conversations about why modern gaming is the way that it is. You're tired of micro and macro transactions. Anything over $5, I consider a macro transaction, right? Knights of the Nine, Shivering Isles, were they not like $10, $20 somewhere in that range? I can't remember. But yeah, normalized macro transactions. You wonder why we're going in the way that we're going and that we're getting less and less content, but more and more monetization. There is correlation and causation between something like a Sparkling Horse mount and more microtransactions and macrotransactions because it's making more than an entire game development cycle did in profits.
World of Warcraft's subscriber base has been dropping at a consistent rate. It's actually dropped 41% since the latest expansion pack, Shadowlands, launched. Players return for the launch of a new expansion, play through it, and then leave. Why don't they stick around? It's because they're caught in the abusive gaming cycle of hoping it will be as good as it used to be, hoping it will be the experience they remember, and then realizing it just isn't.
That WoW cycle I was talking about.
No single game has done more damage to World of Warcraft than World of Warcraft. And just like every bad relationship, every awful job, every toxic friendship, we are starting to reach the breaking point, and even the strongly addicted and franchised players are starting to leave. Asmongold, the world's largest World of Warcraft streamer, started playing Final Fantasy XIV, and it was his most viewed stream in months.
I will say I do agree with his reasons for not returning to 14. The way I understand Asmongold the way I understand why he isn't returning to 14 is because everything is expected of him on stream, right? So he made an analogy. I don't know the WoW analogy. Imagine if you were expected to do this on stream, but you just wanted to play the game, but you couldn't, so you were stuck at level 30 this whole time. I mean, there's been stuff that I've done on 14 that I haven't done on stream. Excuse me. There's stuff that I've done on 14 that I haven't done on stream, right? I did the entirety of the Nier raid on stream. I've done the entirety of the Endwalker Alliance raid series off stream. I've done things off stream that, yes, people want to see, but sometimes allergies. Sometimes you just want to play the game. And so realistically, even though he got to Stormblood, I understand why he stopped playing. And also, I think this was about when Dragonflight was probably coming out, right? Or a reason for going back to WoW. I understand and empathize with his decision. I know there's a lot of people that have just been like, well, just return to 14. If he doesn't want to return to 14, that is completely fine. But yes, he does have a point. When Asmongold, right, known as a WoW creator, WoW streamer, WoW YouTuber, right? When he plays Final Fantasy XIV, and he becomes one of the most viewed people, right? Well, his viewership goes through the roof, right? You start to see how much of a dire state World of Warcraft is in.
Cox put out the video 15 years of WoW versus 1 year of FF14, and WoW refugees flocked to it. There was even a game report recently saying the daily active player count for FF14 was closing the gap on World of Warcraft and was poised to overtake it very soon. Ultimately, World of Warcraft hasn't been taken down by another game releasing and being better than it. World of Warcraft has been damaged, harmed, and is starting to be taken down by World of Warcraft no longer being as good as World of Warcraft once was. If you want to imagine this situation without any of the emotional bonds, without the sunk cost fallacy, without any pre-established connections, imagine this. Imagine World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV both didn't exist. You have no history with them. No one does. No one's heard of them before.
Right.
And then imagine they both release, as they are right now, today. They both hit the MMORPG scene at the same time, with the graphics they've got now, and all the content they've got now, and all the leveling they've got now. Everything as it is right now. In that case... do you think World of Warcraft would do better than Final Fantasy XIV?
Actually, hot take, yes. Very specifically because of the early game. This is gonna be such a hot take. Oh my god. So here's how. Okay, so A Realm Reborn, right? A Realm Reborn is from a different era. Let's just clarify that out of the way. If we are taking both games as they are, all of their current content, and bringing it into modernity as in a vacuum, if you were to play one versus the other. from what I understand of WoW's early game, from playing through WoW's early game versus playing Final Fantasy XIV early game and how it sets up its story, I do think early game-wise, I think WoW will beat it out. I think as soon as 14 hits Shadowbringers, I think it's the concept of one gets the head start, but the other finishes the race. I do think that the players that stick with 14 through Stormblood, going into halfway through Shadowbringers plus through Endwalker, right? I think 14 would win. But the issue in ARR, or Realm Reborn, is referred to as the Great Filter for a reason. I think ARR is going to be a really huge barrier for entry with all the changes they've made, with all the quests they've taken out, with as much as they've tried to streamline it. I think overall, chat, yes, you are right. 14 is going to be perceived as the better game in its entirety. However, if we are talking about just getting into the game, I think World of Warcraft is going to have that easier access. And I think that it will have people stick with it with that initial impression, right? First impressions are everything. I think A Realm Reborn and the 14 team has done everything they can as somebody that has gone through Endwalker and look back on my time in A Realm Reborn, and the difference is astounding. When it is referred to colloquially as the Great Filter, you have a problem that newer players are going to have to overcome, and there's not really a good way, in my opinion, to solve that. I do think World of Warcraft, because of the people that it will retain because of the early game, might actually win this.
With no sunk cost fallacy and no emotional connection to either of the games.
Yeah, exactly.
Which of them do you think would do better if they both released on the same day? Personally, I think more people would choose Final Fantasy XIV. I think right now we are seeing the result of Activision Blizzard consistently failing the player base. We are seeing the result of years and years of underwhelming updates. Expensive, unfulfilling expansions that remove more content than they add and contribute to parasitic gameplay design, including limited time systems and dropped mechanics every year, sometimes with substantial class changes that miss the mark and upset the player base. We are seeing the beginnings of an exodus within the World of Warcraft player base to any other game. And it just so happens Final Fantasy XIV, with its massive free trial, is welcoming the disenfranchised WoW players and picking up the pieces. Final Fantasy XIV did not kill World of Warcraft. Final Fantasy XIV has been focused on being the best MMORPG it can be over several years. World of Warcraft killed World of Warcraft through years of bad updates, not listening to the community, and simply not being as good as it could be. But this shouldn't really come as a shock to Blizzard, because as they taught us themselves many years ago, no king rules forever.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching.
I don't know the reference.
Another massive thank you
sense.
to the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channel going. You can support from only £1 a month. Check the video description for links to the Patreon, Twitch, Twitter, Discord, and our subreddit. And as always, have a great day.
No, I think this is a good video. I was expecting more like game per game analysis. I wasn't expecting kind of the overarching process, if you will. Yes, I did see the Return of the King PS2 copy. Mad respect on that one. I think that that comparison has a lot more to it. Very specifically because we are comparing the entirety of WoW retail versus the entirety of 14 as it stands. And if you are an established MMO player, right, you're going for, okay, well, I'm going to go through A Realm Reborn, I'm going to go through Heavensward, I'm going to go through Stormblood, go through Shadowbringers, go through Endwalker and Dawntrail, right? Whereas if you are in WoW, you're like, okay, well, I got to get through base game, got to get through Burning Crusade, got to get through Lich King, got to get through Cataclysm, got to get through, Mr. Pandaria, got to get through World of Draenor. I don't know how the expansions play out. But if we're considering them side by side in their entirety, yes, I do think that 14 has the edge. I do think, however, WoW is going to have the larger, easier to access introduction versus A Realm Reborn, and I think that's important to have as the discussion. But I think Josh Strife Hayes' argument in a vacuum, I think it works. I do think there's a little bit more nuance, but I do think that there's a discussion to be had here. I thought this was a great video. So, one, if you haven't checked out Josh Strife Hayes, definitely go ahead and check out Josh Strife Hayes. I know people on this channel have mentioned it. I know that people have mentioned it in stream. I know I've mentioned him in stream. I think he brings a lot of really cool points to the table, and you can't help but want to have that discussion. So definitely go check out Josh Strife Hayes if you have it. Definitely down in the description. You will see his channel. You'll see this video. I will also say as well, Josh Strife Hayes, if you do end up watching this, If you're not okay with React content, I know there's been kind of that back and forth. I know you've had with Kira TV, Callum Upton. There's been discussion on React content. I hope, one, that this is transformative. Two, if you are not okay with React content, I am more than happy that if you just email me, I'm more than happy to take it down. And I can also spread the word as well that you are not okay with React content. This is one of those that I just want to do my part and what I can to being that difference. I know a lot of people, actually like the pauses, like me adding commentary and stuff like that. So please, if you're not okay with it, just let me know. I do have an open door policy with all creators that I react to. And lastly, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on 14 versus WoW? What is your experience in World of Warcraft? What's your experience in 14? Do you think that you'd switch? I'd like to eventually, if I was able to say, I don't know, have 2 to 3 months just to dedicate to it, right? Have enough React content done, or have enough of a backing, right? I'd love to go through World of Warcraft. That's one of those that I would have to definitely consult people on to run through the game, but I would love to do it for the experience, to run through it and to really give a true assessment and analysis of it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.